Hello, everyone. As you may notice, I am not Pastor Nick. My name is Jake, and I'm very excited to continue our message on prayer with you this week. I'm glad all of you are here today. I want to say a special welcome to any of our first-time visitors and all of those joining us from our campuses. It's great to see you here this weekend. If you were here last week, you heard Pastor Nick start off our series on prayer. He shared with you this big idea that God actually wants to have a relationship with you. I mean, the creator of the entire universe wants to have a one-on-one relationship with each and every one of us. That's a pretty huge idea. Today, we're going to continue that conversation on prayer and to discuss another topic. God not only wants to have a relationship with you, but whenever you talk to him, it's not just a conversation with yourself. He responds to you. Talking to God is actually a two-way conversation. I know it's hard to believe that this big, almighty God is going to take time out of his busy day and everybody else in the world reaching out to him to respond to little old me. But he's going to do it. You just have to reach out. Before we continue, there's a little video that I'd like to share with you that talks about this, and then we'll come right back.
In the quiet silence, there is an eternal conversation between Creator and creation. But we can hardly hear. It's the violence of sound, the breakneck speed of things. Has noise become our only defense? But we are drawn by a whisper that we might hear and retune the senses as he waits for our response.
What'd you guys think? It's a pretty interesting concept, right? That after you talk or you say your side of the conversation, you're supposed to stop and listen for what the other person has to say. Now, when you're talking with God, it's a little bit different than you talking with your buddy over here. Sometimes you have to stop and take some silent time and listen to what he has to say. For most of us, that's pretty difficult sometimes. I mean, how many in this room thinks it would be hard to sit still and listen in a quiet place for a couple of minutes? Now, how many of you think you could do that without a video game, a phone, or any type of electronic device in front of you? It's really hard for a lot of us. So that's why we have to practice. Take time practicing being still and listening. Do any of you have a friend or a family member who just loves to talk? And when I say talk, I mean they like to talk. They like to talk so much that they never let you get a word in when they're talking. It drives me crazy. But for me, that person is my sister. Now, I love my sister. But when we were kids, anytime she wanted to talk to somebody, especially me, she would talk so much and so fast that you would never be able to say something in return. It was always a one-sided conversation. If you had something to say, she would interrupt you. Or if you were able to say something, she would take what you said and turn it back into a conversation about her. So no matter what it was still a one-sided conversation. Now, she's a little bit older now, and she's gotten a little bit better at that. But even to this day, she will call me on the phone and she'll have a 10-minute conversation with herself. And I will have the phone on. And then when she's done talking, she'll say, "Thanks, Jake, for listening. It was a great talk. Bye." And I was just on the phone with my sister for 10 minutes and I didn't say a single word. But I know whenever she does that, all she really wanted was somebody to listen to what she had to say. She wanted to get what was going on in her life off of her chest so she could keep going on. And there's nothing wrong with that. But whenever that is your entire relationship, then you can't strengthen your relationship because it is completely one-sided. I mean, how can you expect to get closer with somebody if you have no idea what their real opinion of what is going on in your life or what's going on in their life is? You need to listen to what they have to say. Now, how often do each of us talk to God that same way? That when we take what's going on in our lives to Him, and we share it with Him, and then as soon as we're done talking, the conversation is over and we don't give Him a chance to speak, or we don't take time to listen to what He has to say. You may say a prayer in the morning or at night, or even in the middle of the day when something happens, you take time to talk to God. But as soon as you say what you had to say, you roll over and go to sleep, or you go right back to what you were doing. I know I am guilty of it. I will pray, and then as soon as I'm done praying, I'll turn on the radio and put it on blast. And how can I expect to hear somebody talk to me if I have the radio or the TV or Fortnite right in front of me and my whole focus is on that? I told you that my sister was that person who just loved to talk for me. And today, I can actually have a conversation with my sister. She's gotten a lot better, and she will listen to what other people have to say. She actually calls me for advice pretty regularly, and she wants to hear what I have to say. But to this day, I still struggle with talking to my sister about stuff going on in my life, or how I really feel about something, because I have that feeling in my gut that she's going to revert back to where she was when we were kids. That as soon as I share my opinion or what happened in my life, it's going to turn into something about her, and it's going to be a one-sided conversation once again. Now, when we talk to God in that same way, as though it's a one-sided conversation, we're putting that same strain on that relationship. Now, God is not as impatient as I am. He has a lot more patience and understanding for the way we talk to Him than any of us would be able to understand. But we still can't expect Him to listen 100% of the time and never listen to Him in return. We can't just use Him as a sounding board all the time. We have to talk to Him like He's our father or a friend or a mentor. When we talk, we share what we think, and then we listen for His response. The more you listen, the stronger you're going to be able to build that relationship with God. And He's going to be able to build your faith and your strength in Him and steer your life in a positive way. The truth about all of this is God actually wants us to listen to what He has to say. And we know this because as you read through the Bible, you hear God telling all kinds of different people to listen to Him. Jeremiah 31:3 says, "Call to me and I will answer you, and I will tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." That's incredible to me. If you know the story of Jeremiah, there was a lot happening in the world at the time. There was wars happening all around Jeremiah. In fact, Jeremiah was actually in prison because he was afraid for his life. But in the middle of war and tragedy around the entire world, God took time out of His life and His day to reach out to Jeremiah and say, call to me and I will answer. Pour out all of your troubles or ask me anything and I'm going to respond to you. And not only that, he's going to respond with knowledge and information you couldn't get anywhere else. Today, we live in a world where we have a computer in our pocket everywhere we go. We don't even have to type. All we have to do is pull out our phone and say, hey, Google, look this up for me. And Google's going to give you an answer. And Google can answer most things for you, your simple everyday questions. But what Google's never going to get right for you is, how do I be a better person? How do I strengthen my faith for God? God, is this the right choice for my family? Is this the right choice for my future? If you ask Google those questions, yeah, it's probably going to give you 1.7 million responses and web pages to go look up. But none of those are going to give you the answer that God wants you to hear. He's not going to give you the right answer. God spoke to many people throughout the Bible in all different ways. And he gave them all kinds of information that most of them didn't even know they were looking for. In 1 Kings 19, Elijah prayed to God because he was tired. He was on the run because he was afraid for his life. He was tired of running and he was ready to give up. He prayed to God and said, please take me away. I'm tired of living. Take my life. I'm just done. And then as soon as he finished his prayer, he rolled over and he fell asleep. But God wasn't going to let it in there. He wanted his voice to be heard. So he sent an angel to Elijah as he slept and told him to keep going. You're not done yet. It's not over. I have plans for you. And he gave him food and he gave him water and told him to keep going. And Elijah did. He got up and he ran, and then he came into a cave, and again God spoke to him and told him, it's not over. Follow my instructions. Here's what I want you to hear. And when Elijah listened, God steered him in the right path and gave him instructions that bettered his life and many others. And I know we hear these stories and we're like, oh, that's the Old Testament. You don't hear that about God anymore. But that's not true. In the New Testament, Paul, as Saul at the time, was on the road to Damascus, and Jesus appeared before him directly. This was after Jesus had already left earth into heaven, and he showed up on the road directly in front of him and spoke to him and made sure he heard what he wanted him to hear. And he appeared before Paul multiple times in visions and dreams and other times throughout his life. And again, we hear these stories and we're like, well, those are all, disciples and prophets and important biblical people. But throughout the whole Bible, God spoke to normal, everyday folks. It wasn't always giant church leaders. It was average folks like you and me. And to this day, he still talks to average folks like you and me. All he says is to pray to him and he will answer. If you take time out of your day to pray to God, then add a little extra time to listen to what he has to say. Because he responds in many different ways, and sometimes we miss it. But he can answer your prayers or respond to your conversation through different signs and dreams, visions. Sometimes just through a song on the radio. And other times he may speak to you directly. But he's going to respond to you when you pray. The bottom line of this is that when you speak to God, it is a two-way conversation. That to strengthen your relationship with him, not only do you need to pray to him and share with him what is happening in your life or what you want to pour out before him, but you also have to listen to how he responds to it, because he's going to respond in one way or another. And you have to be ready to hear that response. And you can't do that if you surround yourself with distractions. So this week, I challenge each and every one of you to take time out of your day to find a quiet spot where you can be alone without distractions. Leave your phone in the other room. I know it's hard, but I promise you can live a few minutes with it in the other room. Turn off the TV and talk to God. And whenever you do talk to God, continue in that silence and listen for what He has to say. See if He responds. All right, we're going to take a few minutes to discuss this topic at your tables. Please share any questions you have with your table leaders. Thank you.